We're the travel agents coming to you with tips, tricks, interviews, and voyages by cruise. The travel agents bringing you the latest travel news.
Halloween edition.
Welcome to the special Halloween episode of the Travel Agents. I'm Will.
I'm Brian.
And we are your hosts of the Travel Agents podcast. Today, we are talking about Salem, Massachusetts.
Salem, Oregon?
No, sir. Salem, Massachusetts, the site of the Salem Witch Trials in 1692. One of the first things, not first things, but one of the big things we get taught in American history when it comes to the settlers and all this stuff, what it was like settling in New America and all that stuff was the situation that happened with the Salem Witch Trials.
Right.
And this quite created the term going on a witch hunt, going on a witch trial.
If they think, is it always a woman or can it be a man too?
There were a few guys that were killed in the witch trials. Yeah.
Is this where they throw you in the water and if you float, you're a witch, but if you don't, then you are human and you just drown?
Yeah, something like that. Yeah, something really crazy and just nonsensical. Yeah.
So if you can swim, it's a catch-22. You're gonna die.
Yeah. We're not gonna dive too deep into the history of the Salem Witch Trials because there's a lot of really great podcasts on just that subject alone, and that's not our forte. We would do it a disservice. But I want to talk about what it's like to go to Salem, Massachusetts on Halloween, one of the most popular days. Well, not one of, it's the most popular day to go to Salem, Massachusetts.
So, William, you lived in outside of Boston.
Yes.
And just 20 miles northeast of Boston is Salem.
Yep.
And you and your wife decided to go there on Halloween.
Yeah, we were kind of...
what were your thoughts going into this?
Yeah, we were debating whether or not to do it, just because, we know that, it's all about, witches and all this kind of stuff, and we had no idea what to expect. And we were like, is it going to be, super busy on Halloween? And we had a few people in Boston say don't go to Salem on Halloween. It's ridiculous. You're not gonna be able to do anything. You're not gonna be able to park. Nothing like that.
Going to Munich during Oktoberfest.
Exactly. Yeah. A diet version of that. Definitely. Yeah. But honestly, we had no problem getting a parking spot. We had no problem doing what we wanted to do and walking the town. It's a really cool town to visit because keeping in mind this area is super old. When it comes from the perspective of an American, Salem in the area of Massachusetts is it's been around for and inhabited by Americans and stuff since 1600s, probably earlier than that. And so there's a lot of really old buildings and a lot of really cool history there.
So when you got to Salem, how did you know where to go?
So we kind of just drove around, and you could pretty quickly find the town center. We were looking for the witch trial museums, or the monument, I should say. So we really wanted to focus in that area, and that is more so where the old city is actually going to be in. So we just drove around in the city, kind of took in the sights. It's a really small, quaint, quiet city. You could tell it normally would be quiet.
What's the witch trial monument look like?
Yeah, so it's kind of interesting. How do I explain it? So there are a bunch of sort of plaques dedicated to one of the victims, each one of the victims of the trials. Because if you don't know, I'm not going to dive too deep into the history, but if you don't know this, the Salem Witch Trials, a lot of people were tried and convicted of being witches, and they died really excruciating deaths. For some of them, they were able to die really quickly, but they were all innocent. They were just sort of targeted and convicted of being witches by people who were just saying, "Hey, this person's a witch," because, like Brian alluded to, they float or something in the water. Just really stupid things that are nonsensical. And so they killed I want to say over around 30 people. Is it 30 people? But this memorial is really cool. It's very low key. It's outdoors. People are leaving like little items there, maybe like pennies or just like trinkets or whatever dedicated to those people. You can read who the person is, a little bit about their life. It's centered in the old town of Salem. There's some really old architecture, some old houses, like very old houses in the area. And you're right there in the town center. So you're going to be able to do like some really cool stuff, whether you're going to some of the museums, the Salem Witch Trial museums, or you want to see some of the other stuff that's in Salem.
Did you look to see if there were like any ghost tours or haunted mansions or like activities or excursions?
Yeah, it's definitely like, honestly, like almost anything you can imagine for Halloween, it's there. There's a lot of stuff for ghost tours. There's a lot of stuff for haunted houses. A lot of things, they fully embrace Halloween. What's really funny is that this is the town of Salem. Modern Salem is not even the original location of the witch trials. That actually happened in a town just north of it called Danvers. It's like a really tiny town. Danvers is actually the original Salem village where the witch trials actually happened. Salem, modern day Salem in Massachusetts, sort of ran with it and took that opportunity for tourism dollars and marketing and stuff. Yeah. And Danvers was like, yeah, that's fine, whatever. And so like, it's not even like the actual location for the witch trials.
So you get to Salem on Halloween Day.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess my first question is there witchcraft? Is there like shops and stores and like magic, or are there people doing spells? Like what are you seeing? Is everyone dressed in like, I'm thinking of like Disney vampire.
Sure. Yeah. There's definitely people in costume, totally leaning into the Halloween situation. So there's people in costume. There's more so like festivities, like almost like a carnival fair going on in a lot of the areas. Some of the parks are just converted into food vendors and markets, and there's trinkets where you can go and buy stuff from local vendors, buy food from the food carts. You can hit up some of the restaurants that are like right around the area. You're going to be able to see like some really popular film spots for what's the Bewitched, Sabrina the Witch,
Sabrina the Teenage Witch.
Yeah, Bewitched, Hocus Pocus.
Wow.
The show Supernatural. Like there's a lot of shows that filmed in Salem, so you're going to be able to see like a lot of those film locations. So even if you're interested in like television and movie history, like this is an interesting place for you as well. And so there's actually just a lot of stuff that you can do for all ages. Like Kristen and I, we took one of our dogs and we just walked around the area and really enjoyed it. We were able to see some old buildings and like go and tour the museums and stuff like that. And it really wasn't that bad for parking. Like we found a spot pretty close for parking, and it was like $20, and we were good for the whole day. But I would recommend if you're going to go to Salem on Halloween that you're going to want to go like pretty early and beat that traffic. Because when we left at like 4. We had been there for like 4 or 5 hours, and like the traffic was like 2-3 miles deep on the highway to get into Salem.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it was crazy.
Okay, right on. And did you two go to any cemeteries?
No, that's a good question. There's actually like I don't want to say it's a famous cemetery. I think it's just a sightseeing cemetery because it's just one of those old cemeteries. Like, you know, when we went to Boston, how many old cemeteries were there that were like kind of interesting because there's some historical figures buried there, or they're just like 400, 500 years old.
Sure.
There's a cemetery right next to the Salem Witch Trials that's just similar.
I wonder if it closes or if it's like they leave it open for.
Yeah, that's a good question.
When you and I were in Boston, we did that ghost tour. We got to go in a closed cemetery with our guide. She had a key.
Yeah, and that was cool. That was cool.
It was cool.
Yeah, and if you want to learn more of that, we have a podcast dedicated to Boston, so you can learn all about that from that podcast.
How late did you stay? I get what I'm getting at is when it got pretty late, was it about to get pretty rowdy?
That's a really good question. So we had one of our dogs with us, and so yeah,
Oh, I get you.
yeah. So we were like, and we didn't really know what to expect to be told. Like
so that's why you brought a dog.
Completely wung it. Yeah, exactly. So we were there for like 4 or 5 hours, from like 10, 11 to like 3, 4 o'clock. We got lunch, walked around the city, saw it, and, visited the sites and stuff. But we didn't stay there at night. I would imagine it's like pretty cool, like almost like a festival. It wasn't like, nothing about the town was dark. Nothing about it was dark or anything like that. It was very welcoming and very family friendly. Family friendly.
Was there like trick-or-treating for kids and stuff?
Oh, that's a good question. I don't recall anything I don't recall like any shops like having.
Yeah, but you saw
like
children.
Yeah, there were a lot of kids. There were college kids, high school kids, young kids, babies. Yeah, the works.
Are you glad you went?
Heck yeah, it was a lot of fun. I mean, what's so cool about New England as a whole, if you're interested in history, like at all, like whatsoever, there's just a lot of cool opportunities here to see some famous locations, get really involved with like some historical figures. I mean, there's a house called the House of Seven Gables that Nathaniel Hawthorne wrote a very famous book about. And you can go and visit that house. And that's a really popular location in Salem. Just a ton of stuff dedicated to history in this area.
Well, that's something I want to ask you, but I always forgot to. So this is a good time. Is like living in New England for that many months.
Mm-hmm.
Do you feel like you got connected to a part of U.S. history that you had never been connected to before?
Definitely. Yeah. I think that was honestly one of my favorite things. It was kind of similar to like, when we went to Israel, it made like the Bible like come alive even more.
Yes.
Right. It's pretty similar to that because it makes it, I don't know, it makes it more real. Like you're closer to it.
Yeah.
You're closer to the source. You're closer to Ben Franklin and, Nathaniel Hawthorne and all of these really huge historical figures in American history. And it's really cool. Yeah. Very, very cool.
I mean, this December, I'm going to Egypt and I just can't wait to, like, I've seen the pyramids so many times online and pictures. And like, I'm actually very eager to see them in person.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It makes it so much more real. And I think that was kind of the reason why we wanted to go to Salem and on Halloween, just because it's like, we've read about the Salem Witch Trials for like all of our lives. Like we grew up in elementary school reading about the witch trials and all that kind of stuff. And it was just kind of cool to go to an area where it made the history more real. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And you could remember it and make it more like.
So would you go back?
I would go back with friends. Yeah, for sure. I think I would go back in like the evening and see what it's like in the evening. There's a ton of stuff to do. Like it's just like a huge festival. Honestly, it's just a huge festival in the whole city. You're not going to be bored. They close off streets and, bring in restaurants onto the streets and stuff.
Do you think you'd be bored going there in a weekend night in June?
No, not necessarily. There's some really nice hotels too. Some really nice B&Bs as well. There's a lot of really great restaurants. Again, it's like New England as a whole. Yeah. I mean, everything there is really cool.
But I am reading here that approximately 500,000. Hold on. Let me get it here. How many people would you guess come visit Salem on Halloween?
Oh my gosh. It's got to be a lot. I would believe 500,000.
Oh, okay. Typically, over 500,000 visitors flock to Salem each October to celebrate Halloween.
Wow.
Crazy.
That is crazy.
Good for Salem.
Yeah.
I don't blame them for wanting to just rack up the tourism dollars.
Yeah. I mean, if you're a fan of Halloween, if you're a fan of just like the costumes, if you're a fan of history, film history, there's something there for everyone. Or if you just like festivals, like that whole like carnival energy, Salem's a really cool place on Halloween. I recommend it. Just go early, beat the traffic if you can. If you really, really, really want to see it, then get a hotel well in advance. They get booked up really quickly, but it's worth it. I thought it was cool.
Nice. Thanks, Will. Enjoyed it.
We're the travel agents. That's the end of